Hey, welcome everybody back to Sales Made Easy, our podcast where we make sales easy for you, where we take some experienced years like myself of getting my nose bloodied and figure out how to make life a little easier, especially in our changing world of sales. And today we're lucky we've got Kristie Waters with us. Kristie's now with a company called Leslie's Pools. If you don't know Leslie's Pools, you probably live way up north, right? Right? Because if you're down south and you're where pools are plentiful, there's a Leslie's Pools around just about every corner. And Kristie handles really the sales departments for salespeople that run into, let's say, apartment complexes where they have pools where it's more commercial based. So if we think about it, how would you, thinking about as a sales leader, talking to other sales managers and other sales leaders, what do you think, maybe if you could name the three most important things in your day, right, where you're always looking out for, what you think is most important?
A, how well organized are they and do they have a clean process? How big is their pipeline? And what I mean by that, and I'm sure folks that listen to this podcast completely understand this because Tom is a sales guru, but you've always got a plan, even if you've got a plan that the stuff that you're working on, not everything is going to close. So how much breadth is in your pipeline? So in the event that you don't close that business, you constantly have something behind it to backfill it. And then, are they asking the right questions of their existing customers or their prospects to either convert or to organically grow within the existing book of business? And with organic growth, how deep can you get in with them so you're irreplaceable? Like you basically are seen as a direct resource for their company and not hey, I know you, let's talk about football on the weekends. It's hey, I have this problem. You're going to help me solve it because you always help me solve everything to help my business.
Yeah, it's really like becoming more of a trusted advisor. I think that's what, it's easy for salespeople in your world and a lot of worlds to get into almost that route sales mentality. Just drop by, hey, how's it going? Goodbye, And I think in today's world, if they're not practicing the consulting end or the trusted advisor of, hey, someone says, hey, everything's fine, I have no problems. I think a salesperson today is going to sit there and say, well, let's talk about 2024. Let's just take a look at your overall strategy for this environment of your apartment, right? Your hotel for 2024. Not just kind of help you fix something right now. Right?
Yeah. And it's being proactive in the conversation too, right? So that way they're not calling you with a problem. You've already had the conversations with them and you're anticipating the problem or the pain that they're going to have. So you can help them get ahead of it. So they aren't waiting. So for example, with Leslie's, they aren't waiting until the health department comes in and shuts their pool down because their water in some capacity isn't safe or the surrounding deck area isn't safe.
And you mentioned, I think, to me, and I know we've talked about before, the pipeline. As a manager, if you don't have an eye on that pipeline, if you don't have a way to look at that and know what's really going on, I think it's a problem. And I think to the point of, I'll talk about, my younger days in sales, right? Where people would yell at me, what's in your pipeline? What's in your pipeline? So I put garbage in the pipeline, right? Which only made it prolong the agony later on. And I think it's really, a manager's really got to focus on what's in there and is it moving? And if it's not moving, get it out of there, right? And so sometimes if I'm a manager for you and you're looking at my pipeline, how do you make sure I'm okay with getting the garbage out of my pipeline, even though it might look thinner than you might like it, but it's more truthful?
Well, think about it. Salespeople at heart are people pleasers. Like they pride themselves on that, right? So they also don't want to push back on a prospect that may or may not convert because they think, I'm going to keep following up with them and I'm going to keep doing it. So as a manager, you've got to help your salesperson understand the why you want to get to the no. And the no really just means not right now. So you've got to help your salesperson get to that place, but have the right kind of conversation that, hey, I'm still here if you need me. Give me a call. I'll check in with you in X amount of time, and making sure that you follow up with them in that time period. So you're you're committed to what you've actually told them you would do. But understanding the same amount of time it's going to take you to continuously work on that one that isn't going to close for a year, you could focus on probably 2 or 3 others that could close in the next 30 days.
And good salespeople, I think, are more focused on what they can control, not what they can't control. And I think that's why pipeline management is so important in today's world. And it's easy if you have a good CRM. I think that's one of the biggest things is if you don't have a good CRM, it's tough. But with a great CRM, I think it's easier to control everything. And you can't control if you don't have the data or the knowledge. Which takes me to another thought. CRM, one of the things that to me is happening, and maybe you haven't gotten into this yet, but what's happening today is AI, artificial intelligence. And we have always had it in sales. We call it CRM, right? I mean, CRM really can help us with artificial intelligence, just make my job as a salesperson easier by predicting my next day's work because I've already got stuff in there. But have you guys gotten into AI at all or using it at all in your world?
Yeah, so I'll tell you 2 stories with that. So I'll answer the first question, which is about Leslie specifically. So our sales ops director has started to do research on how we could use AI to help the inside sales team tell a better story when they're having conversations with either a prospect or an existing customer. So we have looked into that a little bit. And then with our CRM that we're onboarding right now, it has a whole AI package that will actually even give us predictive information that will tell us whether or not a prospect will possibly close based on activity, et cetera. But being an executive for a company, I get a lot of inbound cold call emails from companies. And I can tell when it's written by AI and when it's not. So I think it's a really fine line that you have to do with that and be careful with it. Another good example of AI is I was talking to a friend of mine and I was consulting with him to help him build his website. And I was like, let's just take this and put it into an AI generator and see what it says. And immediately the rest of his team was like, it doesn't sound like him. It doesn't sound like it's authentically him and his story. So again, I say that because yes, AI has a lot of good value, but does it sound authentic? Does it sound like what it would be from your personal standpoint? Because people can see through that. And to be successful in sales, you have to be authentic. But part of that too is, and not to do a shameless plug for Sandler sales training, but it's the elevator pitch. You're tailoring that to every individual prospect that you speak with, and that really should be what it is. Another pushback that I get from salespeople that other companies that I work for, including the one that I work for now, when you first bring sales process to an organization, their first comment is, well, this seems too scripted and too robotic. So AI, if you think about it, robotic, right? But if you, again, the authenticity part of it, it doesn't have to be robotic, but it's got to be replicable and it's got to be consistent in your message. And that's the part that I think sometimes gets lost on salespeople and even sales leaders, because I think part of them too just wants it to be so systematic so they can measure to it, but they don't really give the true rationale behind it to those folks.
The other thing you mentioned is, you mentioned 3 things: organization, pipeline, questioning. Tell me a little bit about, for salespeople and sales managers, organization. What do you mean by that?
So sales pipeline is what you're working on from start to finish. So what you're doing to actually take a customer from a suspect level, some people call it suspect, some people call it just straight from cold call, to becoming a prospect, qualifying them basically to figure out if they are a good fit for your organization, which ties into questions, right? Research and questions that you're asking them. And then once you've qualified them, the steps that you have to do to convert them to a new customer, and then actively managing the customer once you've converted the customer themselves. So questioning and sales pipeline, Paul hand in hand. What was the third one?
Well, pipeline, questioning, and then organization.
Yeah, organization. So organization, yeah. All of your process that you're doing, your calendar, your plan for the following week, who you're seeing when, how often you're seeing them, how often you're seeing the prospects, how often you're prospecting or cold calling, all of those different things that you have to do to get to the closer to manage your business. And it's consistency too, right? Like my big thing when I was in outside sales, even what I talk to salespeople about now is when you ask for the meeting, know exactly how long it's going to take you. do you have 15 minutes on this day? Or if it's an existing customer and you know how busy they are, hey, why don't we do a standing meeting on this day at this time every week or bi-weekly if that's good for you, and so from the food perspective, so we can plan your menu. That's always consistency. Or it's, hey, let's have when I was in the corporate world selling to corporate national accounts, it was, hey, let's do a quarterly meeting or a bi-monthly meeting, and these are the KPIs we're going to go over to measure how we are doing for you as a vendor, and then how the distributors are doing for you. So if they know that, it also, you're being respectful of their time, and so they're going to be respectful of yours as well.
Yeah, it's one thing, I think it's an old Sandler rule, which is there's no such thing as a social call in sales, and it's more true than ever before. If you're calling me just to drop by, you're wasting my time, and I don't have time for you.
Yeah.
But if you have a reason, there's a reason we're talking, right? And you're organized, then, like you said, everything else kind of falls in place, because I know if I'm coming to see you, I know what questions I'm going to ask, because it's in my repertoire. My third meeting with you, if you're not a customer, these are 3 questions I want to get to know. And so you should have all that set, organized, ready to go as a salesperson in today's world.
Yeah. I think one common theme, the word that you keep using and the word that I keep using, and that I tell everyone, when I first became in leadership here at Leslie's, and then I did it in other companies that I work for, the question that I ask everyone when I first introduced them to sales process, organization, and pipeline, et cetera, is, what is the most valuable resource that everyone has? And they always go on the path of all these other things, and it's time. Time is the most valuable resource for everyone, and you can't get it back. So you have to be very deliberate and intentional about how you're using that time.
So kind of wrapping up, what's one big piece of advice you can give to sales managers?
Consistency. If you are not consistent with your salespeople and organized with your salespeople, they are not going to be consistent, and they are not going to be organized.
Well, hey, Kristie, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. The couple things we want to take back from what Kristie told us is, number one, organization. Are you a sales manager organized, but are your people organized? And that's some easy ways to find out. I think as a sales manager myself, when I rode with my salespeople, I'd always look at their car, and I could tell pretty easily if they're organized or not. So, and that's not to beat up the salesperson. We all need help, and sometimes people need help being organized, just don't know how to do it. So help them get organized, but be consistent and hold them to that organization, right? And then pipeline, right? What's your pipeline look like? Are you looking at it? Because I think, Kristie, the biggest problem is if we're asking people to fill out stuff and put it in the pipeline, but we as sales managers are taking that data and using it to help them, then garbage in, garbage out. But if you're using that data on a monthly basis, weekly basis to coach me through where I'm at, you're going to find out real quick it's garbage, right? And you're not going to let me throw garbage in there anymore. And it's going to help me become a better salesperson. So pipeline management. And then the third thing she said, questions. What questions is your questions consistent? And are you using questions to grow your relationship?